folks, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us. We're Seattle local. I'm Joe Justice. I'm the president of Scrum in hardware at Scrum Inc. And I'm lucky enough to have been featured in Forbes 5 times and been cited in Harvard Business Review 3 times in just this last quarter, a few more times overall. Some of you might have seen the TEDx talk I got to do here in Seattle that then did go viral. Thank you, Seattle. And yeah, right? And the Discovery Channel did a mini documentary about what I'm about to show you. In 2006, we learned a whole lot about Scrum, a fast-moving project management system mostly thought to be used in software startups for hardware. The CEO of Medco, at that time the largest automated pharmacy fulfillment system, announced an entire new robotic pharmacy, autonomous robots and the software that runs them, to deploy new prescriptions worldwide, and he announced to the Wall Street analysts it would be ready in just 1 year. The only problem is he didn't ask any of the people doing the work if that was the right amount of time. Have you ever seen this story before? Right? So here's what happened. His project management organization, the first time they heard about the announcement was during the earnings call where the CEO announced it. So they panicked and did the very best they could. They started making a plan of how they would deliver everything the CEO was continuing to promise all of the investors. And so they're just panicking more. Well, what that means is no one started work until the plan was done. So 6 months have gone by and no one has even prototyped anything because it's locked up in the PMO making a plan. And here's their plan. We're going to build these new robots and write this new software, and then we're going to put the software on the robots, and it's going to be a year later at our most optimistic guess and CEO. Last time we did something this big, it was 3 years later than that. The CEO says, we're so highly leveraged, we might lose the company. The VP of engineering stands up and says, the last company I was in, we used Scrum for software, and we got twice the work in half the time. What if we used it for building the robots and the software on the robots, and we used it for the whole project? The CEO said, well, I haven't heard any other ideas that would work. Try it immediately. So they called Scrum Inc., and we come in here. So 6 months have gone by, and again, no one has actually built anything. They've only talked about work, right? And we were brought in on December 6th, and the CEO says, great, now we're Scrum. When are we going to ship? What's the honest answer we can give at this point in our story? We don't know, but we can find out. All the people who are actually going to do the work, build the robots and write the software, get in a room and they put sticky notes on the wall and they go through wideband Delphi estimation with stable reference stories and say, we have 1,450 points. Then they run 3 sprints and determine that as an entire company, 8,500 people building robots and software, they can complete 60 of those points every week. Now we have a trend. There are 1,320 points remaining. We know the teams are completing 60 points a week. They're going to ship in December. The CEO says, fantastic, I've never had such evidence-based visibility into when we're actually going to ship. The only problem is we'll still probably lose the company because it's past when I told all our investors we would ship. Now these teams each are using Scrum, right? So they each have someone called a Scrum Master. A Scrum Master's full-time job is to observe the team and get an answer to what is slowing us down and making this place less fun to work. So they give this list to the CEO and say, if you fix this, we should go faster and have more fun. The VP of engineering takes the list and fixes it all by Thursday. Got the list on Monday, fixed it all by Thursday. We learned something at Scrum Inc. working with Medco. There's no impediment in any of our companies that needs to last for more than 1 week if your VP of engineering used to work at Toyota. All of these were knocked out by Thursday. Team velocity immediately went up to 90 points, so it was the right amount of time. There's now 1,230 points remaining. They're going to ship in July 2007. The product owners then look at the scope and say, we're only going to get 550 points done by the release date. Let's make it the right 550 points. They released to just 1 pharmacy instead of the other 3. They released on time. Medco stock price doubled to $52 billion. They bought islands. Scrum Inc. invested in Medco, we made mad money, and now we run a car company building cars and jet fighters, well, working with Saab, builds jet fighters around the world using Scrum. We're in 23 countries, and now we want to give back. William Newing is my product owner, tells me what to do, and he prioritizes helping nonprofits. William, would you say how we try to do that using Scrum?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Many people find it hard to believe that English is my fourth language. Growing up in a multicultural childhood, observation is a good trait that is well honed. A common theme found in organizations is inefficiency. Who here has spent hours sitting in inefficient meetings, just unproductive? It's terrible. It's bad. For software, the point is to produce product and capture as much market share as possible. That's the challenge, that's the goals. For nonprofits, the challenge is the lack of volunteers, the lack of funding and resources. In Scrum, there are many different aspects and points to apply from. It's a framework, it's adaptable. So for nonprofits, when these things change, they have to figure out how to adapt to those different changes. Now, if you've read Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time, you'll know that Team Wikispeed produces cars by volunteers using Scrum for hardware.
How many of you knew Seattle owns a road legal registered car manufacturing business?
No.
Yeah.
5-star crash rated.
Come on up, hang out with us.
We have build parties Thursdays. I'll post that on the site. How Scrum can apply to nonprofits is by making work visible, by having smaller teams so that the information can be shared instead of documented or just for the individual. Team meetings, daily status meetings can be cut down to 15 minutes or less. 15 minutes. People get to choose what they want to work on in terms of tasks and projects. That way people are happier. Imagine that. And of course, having feedback from stakeholders, feedback from volunteers, the community. That way they understand how they're doing, how well they're doing, and how do they make that better. Scrum, until it's discovered that's better and faster, it is the best way that we know how. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Do we get any questions, or did we run
Kind
over?
of,
Well, until they cut
Sorry.
us off, are there any questions? I see a hand. What's up?
Why is it better than the alternatives?
Why is it better than the alternative? Which it? There's a pronoun there I don't know.
Why is Scrum better than?
Oh, why is Scrum? Statistic analysis of all types of ways of doing work.
Joe, can you use a mic so they can hear you for the live stream?
Isn't
too?
that a good
Thanks.
idea? So if I think I heard the question is, why is Scrum better than any other way people could do work? Statistic analysis of all types of doing work. Scrum currently ships projects 80% of the time. The best second place method ships projects on time, on budget 20% of the time. It's a statistical analysis. It is waterfall project management. Amazingly, that's still second. Isn't that amazing? Because there's so many other good ways. Currently, their success rates are pretty low. I was flown into the largest privately held bank in the world, Pictet Bank, and it was a little weird. I was in front of the world's oligarchy families, and they asked me, Joe, when we invest in a business, if they're using Scrum, we have 33% risk to our investment. We totally lose it, 33% less. And we make more, we have a full return on our investment, 340% more often. Why is that? And we spent about an hour together unpacking it statistically. So currently, all I've got for you, and thank you for asking, is evidence-based statistically, it's currently the most successful and the most profitable. Running employee engagement and managerial effectiveness surveys and employee happiness surveys. Currently, Scrum has the top numbers in those three categories. That said, I'm not here to say Scrum is the world's best thing. I'm here to say currently it's the best thing we know of. When we find something else, I'll change the name of the business I'm in to thatsomethingelse.com. But right now it's Scrum, so we're scruminc.com. Did that hit your point? Okay, yeah, currently it's stats. It says it ships more often, makes more money. I see the second hand here.
How often do businesses that try to use Scrum but don't know how to do it properly?
Yeah, like all the time. It's amazing. I just got back from a very large Seattle company, came directly here, where they're saying, we've been Scrum native for 10 years. And I said, okay, there are 11 laws in Scrum. That's it. There's 11 things to do. It takes about 2 days to really learn them. There's 11 things to do. How many do you have? We counted 1. They'd been doing it for 10 years, announced they're native, announced they had it, and they brought Scrum Inc. in to say, how come we haven't doubled speed? They said, we have greater transparency than we used to. All they were doing is daily stand-ups. That's one of the 11 things. So good, there's 1. But that's not yet Scrum. So yes, all the time. Luckily, there's only 11 things. And I'll name them real fast right now, in case someone tells me to stop. You have 3 roles, a product owner, a Scrum Master, and a development team. For every 5 people, you have those roles. Every 5 people, one of them is a product owner, one of them a Scrum Master, 2 to 3 of them are development team members. That's 3. Then we have 5 meetings. There's daily stand-up, sprint planning, product backlog refinement, demo, and retrospective. And if you don't run all of them, it doesn't reinforce, and we don't reduce the time, and we don't increase the money projects make statistically, just based on the postmortem evidence. Then there are 3 outputs, and these are very often misunderstood. They're all over the internet, and still somehow they're often misunderstood. And they are a product backlog, so we know in order what the company is doing with this team, for every team. Then the sprint backlog for this week usually, but it can be up to 4 weeks. What is this team actually doing? And then make work visible management from the Toyota production system. And it's amazing how often we'll have companies that say, we're Scrum, and they have one of those 11 things. But that's it, there's 11 things. Did that help? Did that hit where you were coming from?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. Anything else? Or
One more question. Make it the best one.
make it the best. Are you ready to be the best?
Yes, sir. The U.S. government's infamous for its inefficiency.
I know, right?
Consider approaching a federal agency.
Yeah. So the question was, the U.S. government and many governments are infamous for their inefficiency. Have you considered approaching them? I'll say the Pentagon, because it starts with weapons, right? That's where they put the money first. Yeah, but we can be better than this, but currently that's the world, right? They said we should figure out what this Scrum thing is. We should understand it because it seems to be disrupting the business world, so we should check it out. So they called in Jeff Sutherland, the creator of Scrum, who I'm lucky enough to work with directly, into the Pentagon. I'd like to tell you the output of that meeting. The procurement law that says the Department of Defense will only buy something when. Has anyone in here heard of the thing called the Agile Manifesto, agilemanifesto.org? Yeah? Oh, wow, about half of you were brave enough to raise your hand, maybe even more. That is now in the law, written into the law for the Department of Defense. They won't buy anything. Now, too bad it's weapons to start with, but no subs, no battleships, none of the software that runs on them, no jet fighters, unless it's delivered iteratively, the iterative prototypes work, they're signed off by per iteration by the general that made the purchasing decision, et cetera, and then the 4 values and 12 principles are in the law, put in by the Pentagon. So I won't say it's all fixed yet, but yeah, it's blowing up. The world is changing right now. I have 3 EU delegates that email me regularly. They're all attempting to pass law for the way the EU is run to incentivize evidence-based decision-making and more successful projects over waterfall models for the entire EU. So for the whole US government, it started in weapons. For the EU, it looks like they're taking a more broad approach. And yeah, keep you posted. Everybody, LinkedIn, William and I, William Dean Newing, Joe Justice, let's be best friends forever. Go New Tech.